All right, thank you, Mariah. Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you can hear and see me clearly. So as Mariah said, my name is Momo Mobila Kakoma, and I lead the entrepreneurship unit here at Bongo Hive, and I'll be your moderator for today. And just before we start, I'd like to just quickly take us through a quick summary, because this is if you joined us for our first webinar, you know that this is the second part of a three-part webinar series. So I'd just like to just take us through a quick summary of what we talked about uh, a month ago, how it connects to what we're about to talk about today. And then I will introduce our two guests that we have today, and then we will start our conversation. So a month ago, we focused on the investment side of MineTech, and we looked at what it really takes for innovators to succeed in the mining sector. Our speakers highlighted that Africa is at a pivotal moment where demand for critical minerals and the rise of digital technologies are creating major opportunities for startups. We also discussed how mining companies are looking for solutions that improve efficiency, safety, ESG performance, and cost per ton, and how startups must speak the miner's language, validate their ideas through pilots, and build trust through strong evidence and industry engagement. We also explored how internal decisions are made, why scalability matters, and the need for solutions that integrate seamlessly with existing systems. With IoT and AI being repeatedly highlighted as technologies the industry is actively seeking, today's session builds directly on those insights. So now we shift from why mining needs innovation to how AI, IoT, and automation are transforming operations across the entire pit to port value chain. So for those of you that were not part of our last webinar, we do have a YouTube link that Mariah can help us just put in the chat so that you can go and watch that one so that you are up to date with everything that we're talking about. We will have a third webinar in the first week of December. So just make sure that you also just keep up to date with our announcements for these webinars so that you don't miss anything and you are in tune with what's going on in the MineTech world. So we're ready to get started. We've got our two guests and our two panelists today who are happy to share their experience, their knowledge, their insights, having 18 years and over of mining experience. So we have Mr. Christopher Simusokwe and Engineer Muzungu. So I'll allow them to introduce themselves. We'll start with Christopher. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, how you got into this exciting field in mining.
Thank you very much, Mauma, and thank you so much for hosting us. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, as you've introduced, my name is Christopher Simsokwe, and originally from Zambia, based in Australia, Sydney. And as you called out, I've got over 18 years of experience in software engineering and data and AI with having deployed data platforms across multiple companies, data strategies, building and scaling teams, and having worked in multiple industries like financial services, telco, and mining, which we're going to talk about. I've also had the opportunity to work in South Africa, work in New Zealand, and now in Australia over the last 8 years. So part of my background is that I started out at Lumwana Mining Company, but that wasn't the first mining company I worked for. I interned at Mopani Copper Mines in Kitwe, and then worked for Lumwana. I did see somebody in the chat from Lumwana joining as well, which is really great to see. And you'll see how our paths have crossed with Mr. Sumiri Muzungu as well when he introduces himself. I've also had the opportunity to work for Evolution Mining, which is another mining company, a global firm, and consulted for other mining companies like Glencore before. I'll pause there and hand back to you, Momo.
All right, thank you so much, Christopher. So we're now going to hear from Sumaili. Sorry, I think I forgot how to pronounce your name. Sumaili
That's
Mzungu.
fine.
Sorry about that. Please take the stage and let us know a bit about yourself.
Cool. Thanks, Maomo, and thanks everyone for joining. It's about 6:17 p.m. here in Australia, Perth, and yeah, I'm really excited to be part of this discussion um, this evening. So my name's Sumili Mzungu. I'm a mining engineer by profession, and I've got over 18 years of experience um, in mining engineering, then also in leadership. I started off working as actually a student mining engineer for First Quantum Minerals in Zambia. That time I was still a mining engineering student at the University of Zambia. Then I did work for Lumwana, then also Barrick before I came to Australia. So I've been with Rio Tinto for the last 13 years. So I've been exposed to how the shift, from 2006 until now, how things are changing in the mining industry. And once we start talking, you see how things have moved so rapidly and things that we never thought of that can happen in terms of technology. Then, yeah, I also have a master's in business administration, then also a master's in energy economics from University of Curtin Business School. Yeah, so that's about myself. Probably maybe the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I really get excited when it comes to platforms like this where we can share the information that we have, but also invite questions and learn from each other's peers. And I've just finished serving 6 years as African Professionals Australia president. So I thrive when it comes to personal development, but also working with others as well as we develop each other. So thank you very much, Mama.
Thank you so much to both of you. Very nice to have you on the panel today with rich backgrounds, and we're very, very sure that we will be learning so much from you and your insights. So let's get the conversation started. And Christopher, I will start with you. So let's ease into this. So just opening question, but very interesting and exciting question for me, and I'm sure for all those that are also listening in. So when you're in a major mining house, how do you even begin to build a case, a business case, right? So a business case for a new data or AI project. So how do you convince leadership that it's worth the time, the effort, and the investment? Because this is something that a lot of the startups have to do, and a lot of them probably have never been in the mining space. I'm not sure, how to engage and start those conversations. So what would you tell a startup that is new in the sector, that has a technology, a data or AI project, and they want to approach a mining organization? How do you begin to build the business case for that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Maumo. Uh, I think the challenge with AI and AI as we know it today is that probably 80% of the room you talk to won't even understand what you're talking about when you try to explain the solution. So I think the way to approach it is that instead of starting with a solution, start with a problem, build the confidence and earn the trust of the people you're trying to convince, whatever you're trying to convince them with, to form that connection. I think that's really key. And you do that first by demonstrating, especially in mining, when you talk into mining houses, you do that by first of all demonstrating that you actually understand the end user's problem or pain point. That carries a lot of weight because it shows that you understand where they're coming from. It even carries more weight if you've personally experienced it, the problem itself, and share that story of your experience so that the challenge resonates with them and the challenges of solving it. Share those, and you might even be lucky and find that your challenges, the challenges you've experienced, are the same as theirs that they are going through. So once you've broken that trust barrier, uh, then they'll trust what you're talking about, and they'll understand that you feel their pain, Then you can progress into proving value. There's what we call POVs, proof of value. Other people refer to them as proof of concepts. This starting out small is really key. But before you do that, you also need to recognize that, mining houses or mining companies are risk averse. Safety is always a priority for any mining company. And so deploying something that they've never used before is really high risk and is potentially a no-go for a lot of mining companies. That is why you have to start with a proof of value, and it has to be in a self-contained environment. And during that process of proving the value, you are gathering critical data or critical information to include in your business case. So at this point, you haven't even built your business case or presented it yet. It's just a strategy of approach that you are using. And so things like, problem statement, now you understand the problem, you've resonated with the end user, things like the challenges that you had shared with them, the required resources, the risks and mitigations, and the measurable results coming out of how you're proving that value. And the outcomes are what you now extrapolate to put into the business case. And that is what might get your solution endorsed. So, the way I would think about it is that, in the business case too, your pitch would be something in the lines of, if you do nothing type of thing. It's opportunity cost to demonstrate that why does this matter and why does it matter now? What's the opportunity cost, and to drive a sense of urgency for action for the mining company to take action on your business case. I think those are the starting areas of how you actually should be approaching a business case for a data and AI project. And this might resonate not just for data, but for IoT solutions, whether it's not advanced analytics, but software and the like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you
think
so
probably
much.
maybe.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to add on what Chris was actually saying. I think one thing that we need to note is that when we're presenting things to mining firms, to mining companies, right? And when we're talking about AI, now we're talking about AI, pit to pod. The three cardinal things that you need to present in your business case is that how does this solution help with the safety on site? How does this help with the efficiency of the operations and the productivity? So when you check in terms of all the research and what is happening on mine sites, these three are really key. So when you are pitching and you're trying to get an opportunity, you need to be addressing these three things. How does this actually help the mining operations achieve these three? Thanks.
Thank you so much. I think very, very interesting, but very important key points. And I think as a hub that also works with entrepreneurs, I think we speak the same language when we talk about starting with the problem and helping people understand the pain points. So starting from the perspective of the users, right? And what pain point they have, and building that trust and connection. I think it's something that we also really try to drive down to startups. Talk to your customers, as many as you can and as many as possible, so that you can really relate to what they're going through in these situations before you present your solution. And thank you, Smiley, for just summarizing that so beautifully. So how does your solution help with safety on site, efficiency of operations, and also productivity? This is also something that came out very strongly as well in the last webinar we had. So we're all talking the same language, and that makes me happy that we're not out here contradicting each other, right? All right, so thank you so much for that. Sumaili, I'll go on to you again, opening questions. So having spent about over 18 years on site, when a new technology, let's say a new piece of planning software or drone is introduced, what are the immediate practical challenges you face at the pit that the head office might not be thinking about?
That's an interesting question, Mom. So when we are implementing things, right? And over the years, people have thought that, oh no, the head office, they just bring things to site and it's like switch on and let it work. But in most cases, it doesn't work out like that. I think some of the things over the years that I've seen that people might not be privy to is the actual process of implementation. Now, you gave an example of, let's say, a mine planning software. So if we're going to implement that on site and it's coming from the head office, I think we need to understand why do we need the new software? And in most cases, where I've seen over the last 18 years, some have worked really well. When you are going to roll out a project, you need to engage the end users. So by the time you're actually even bringing that software or anything that you want to implement to site, you would have had an opportunity to do a change management. And when you do change management, you see that there will be key stakeholders that you need to actually engage. And through that process, you'll be able to know what is good, what is right, and any showstoppers in there. By the time you are getting to site, you'd have had people already that are going to be using that software that have already tested it on the pilot project. That is very key. So successful implementation, what I've seen over the years, where we engage people, we give them the opportunity to understand what is actually happening, because every time there's change, people don't actually like change. Even if engineers in this particular case, because someone might have known a software for the last 5 years, for the last 10 years. So for them to start afresh again, it might be difficult, but that software is coming to help us improve our efficiency. And when we talk about AI, now we've got softwares that are actually really quick because they are using the AI in the background. So you'll be able to run a lot of scenarios to actually understand the outcome. So you don't have to take a long time to use different variables to see what outcome would come from there. So it's very important that we actually engage the people that are on site. Otherwise, that is bound to fail. And if you check the change curve, right? When change is introduced, there's what we call the valley of despair, But how do we bridge that? How do we soften the landing? And that's very key. But what I've seen again over the years is that in the head office, or what we call, because most of mine sites are remote and you've got your head office in the city, what I've seen over the years is that most of us who've spent a lot of time on site, a lot of those people are now migrating into head office positions, and now they understand. So that is actually bridging the gap. Someone that has actually worked on site, they know what it takes to implement something. And apart from just the mining engineers themselves, what you need is stakeholder engagement. Because remember that when you release something, it's not just the immediate team that is impacted. There are other stakeholders that have to be engaged as well to actually understand the change that is happening and the reason. Once you do that, you're going to have buy-in, and I've seen success with that. Thank you.
I just want to add on as what Sumili has shared to put a few things into perspective. It's really critical for the bottom-up approach for mining organizations to consider. You can have a top-down approach and the bottom-up approach. Resistance will be higher with a top-down approach, and adoption will be easier with a bottom-up approach. The mining sites know their problems better than the teams that are off-site. So site experience is really key. I can give you an example of some of my experience where when we are rolling out IoT devices and virtual reality or augmented reality solutions, where we found that very simple things that, in mining environments are harsh conditions. And we deployed these devices so that the maintenance teams can get remote help when they need it through augmented reality. And they would try out the equipment. These equipment had batteries, but then they would pack them away without being charged. When they do need them during downtime, they found that the equipments weren't working. That is not something that somebody off-site would have understood, but somebody on-site would really understand when they are rolling it out that, hey, we do need standard operating procedures that show the steps that you should be taking when rolling out these solutions. So entrepreneurs as well need to factor in when they're thinking and designing solutions, what are the standard operating procedures they should apply in their execution, the execution that Sumili was talking about, the how implementation side. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for those and key things that really stand out here. As Christopher, you mentioned the bottom-up approach would have less resistance, right, compared to using a top-down approach and really understanding the SOPs, right? It's important for entrepreneurs, again, to understand the mining language and understand the mining environment in which they're implementing implementing their things. And then Sumaili talked about, again, engaging the end users from the beginning. So the people that are going to be using this, ensuring that you understand all the stakeholders that are going to be involved, right, in deploying this particular technology and engaging them right from the beginning so that they are also involved in the testing, so that by the time it's being used, they're already familiar with that. It also just makes, the change management easier and smoother. So thank you so much for those insights. Definitely makes a lot of sense and very good insights for startups to implement, because we don't see that being implemented a lot. And as you also mentioned in the beginning, the mining sector is also not the easiest, place to implement new things as well. And rightly so, because it's a very risky, environment. So these are really good insights for them to apply, as they are building solutions for the sector. So let's go into now the core of the discussion. Of you to start these questions. I see everyone you're still adding on to, so that's great already. So I'll start with my first question here. So from your perspectives, what is the biggest operational problem? So for example, safety, efficiency, cost that you see on African mine sites. Now I know you're now not in the African continent, but I'm sure you still experience a lot, and even just from your experience before. So from your perspectives, what are the biggest operational problems that you see on African mine sites that you believe is still not being solved well by today's technology? And where is the biggest gap? Where is the biggest opportunity? So Christopher, we can start with you. I see you're muted, and then we'll go to Sumaili.
Okay. You can hear me, right?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think from my perspective and experience, the biggest operational problems, you'll be surprised, it's not the tech. The tech is not the issue. Sumili talked about change management. It comes down to the key component in this whole process is the people. And that is what stifles adoption. So as you think about the solution that needs to be saved to the mining companies, think about the people first and involve those people in the solution design. Because if you're involving them in the solution design, then you're actually designing around the problem that they need to solve. Now, this might sound funny, but I think a lot of people living on this program might have heard this before, that, the robots will take over our jobs. So when you sell automation, it scares people that, am I going to lose my job? And I think that's one of the things that blocks innovative solutions, especially in AI. And now when everybody is talking about losing their AI replacing their jobs, I think that's a blocker in a lot of these operational challenges for AI to be deployed because of the way it's positioned. However, that's not what actually ends up happening. AI, IoT, and automation actually end up, solving key problems and augmenting human experience and not replacing it. It does augment human experience instead of replacing it. In fact, in most situations, you find that the teams that adopt it now start working at a higher level. This higher level of thinking is now introduced into the team that is working on problems and augmented by artificial intelligence and IoT solutions to accelerate productivity, to maximize safety. Those are key challenges that can be solved by these solutions. But then when the end users are left out of the loop during the design of the solution, only to be given it to them after the solution is done, it's a black box to them. They don't trust it. They don't know whether it's there to replace their jobs or to help them do a better job. And so what's the best thing for them to do is to deliberately ignore it, that I know how to do my job. I know where the problems are. I'm going to solve them myself. So I think we need to factor that in when we are handling the biggest, what I would call the biggest operational problems that can block innovation and AI. Yeah.
Okay. And Sumili, before we get to you, in case you'd like to add, I'd just like Chris maybe to stay on you with this one, because you did touch on something that's been mentioned, I think 2-3 times already in the course of the conversation, and it's involving the users, the people in the design of the solution. So maybe like me, others are also thinking, how exactly do we do that in a practical way? Because as we've said as well, the mining sector, it's not easy to get in, it's risky. So how exactly do you do that? You're not sure of what you're going to, of the solution, there's a problem, maybe you haven't worked in the mining sector before, but you're interested, you've seen all the challenges that are going around. How do you go about actually involving people in the design of the solution? Can you mention maybe a few practical examples or maybe an experience that you've had yourself?
Yeah, so part of what I've done when working in mining companies is, so some of the roles I've had from a solution architecture perspective, and what that meant was sitting down with the end user, to map out the business process, their day-to-day activities of how they get to a certain outcome. It could be an operator in the plant, or it could be an operator on a mobile plant, or an operator in the fixed plant in the control room. Mapping out the process is really key, and identifying the bottlenecks during the process. That I'm not an expert on theory of constraints, but Sumili is. Maybe he will add on later on theory of constraints. But mapping out the bottlenecks and then identifying which is the biggest bottleneck, and solve that first. Now, you don't need to solve the end-to-end value chain because bottlenecks can shift. But if you target the first bottleneck in the mapped out business process, applying basic business analysis steps, solve for that first, but don't take the credit. I think this is really key. Let the end user take the credit. Let them be the one to shine that it was their idea in the first place. Then you stand a better chance of succeeding with that. So the other piece is to ensure that the end user that you're working with becomes the champion, becomes the ambassador. So finding that means that you're finding an early adopter that will help you prove the value. This is how we managed to deliver over $80 million in increased revenue and cost savings at one of the global mining firms over a period of 3 years. We set up champions. The champions were close to the action at the mining sites. They understood the problem, and we identified where the bottlenecks were, and then we helped them solve those bottlenecks with AI and machine learning, advanced analytics, and IoT. And through that process of mapping it out with them, what is happening indirectly is training. They are learning about how the solution is going to work. And by doing that, by the time you deliver it, it's no longer a black box. It's something that they can actually trust because they understand how it works. When we delivered solutions in maintenance, for example, and it's predicting outcomes like downtime. The prediction has to make sense to the maintenance technicians or engineers. They don't want to be given a recommendation they don't really understand. They don't want to do trial and error based on the next best action that has come out of an AI or machine learning model. So explainability of how the solution arrived at that outcome will also improve the trust and improve adoption and lift the lid of the black box.
Thank you so much for that. I really, really love, what you said. The last thing you said, indirectly mapping out the solutions with the users is also training for them. And I think with everything that you've said, it's made me think that, a lot of trying to get into the mining sector, or any sector actually that is foreign, there's a lot of relationship building, trust building, right? So a lot of startups think it's, oh, I've got the tech, I've got the solution, people will love it, let me jump in. But there's an aspect of just there's a relational aspect, right? Relating to humans, building trust. And these are the soft skills, that you also have to build. So super, super important. Usually these things are overlooked. But I think you've given me here something to add, in our programs and trust, with people in organizations, so that, when you're trying to implement something or shared, an innovation, it's received, in a better way. Thank you so much, Christopher. Sumili, please, over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I think just like what Chris said, it's not the gap or the issue itself is not the tech or any particular gadget or anything like that. I think it's the operationalization of the data itself, because getting reliable data is what is causing issues. So if people cannot get reliable information, and when we talk about AI, right, whatever information that goes in, that is the outcome. And that's where you have people challenging the outcome because they don't really believe that that should be the outcome. And because people are not trusting the information that is coming out or the data that is actually being gathered, because mine sites, these are harsh environments where there's dust, sensors are not working. So how can we actually leverage that? And the gap, mostly in an African context, you see missed opportunities in terms of maintenance, maintenance that could have been prevented in terms of breakdowns or even blind spots in terms of safety. These are key things, but also coupled with connectivity issues. AI thrives on strong connectivity. So until we resolve that issue, of connectivity, that will remain an issue. And you can actually see that all these are seen in terms of the downtime, things that could have been prevented, incidents that could have been prevented. You see, when we talk later about the automation, because I've been involved with automation of haul trucks and the safety that has come out of there. Some of the things that are being reported by the likes of Rio Tinto, BHP, and also FMG, they've seen an improvement about 50% in terms of reduction on incidents. That's massive. FMG saying, oh no, this is the longest run that they've had without incidents. So without actually going deep dive into the numbers of how many incidents they had prior, but this is what is being shown. And to me, that's an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sumili, for that for that addition. Okay, so let's move on to our second question here. So let's talk about some practical use cases, so, in the industry around AI, IoT. So what is one example of a simple, quote unquote, right? Because it might not be simple for everybody, a simple data, AI, or IoT application that you have seen deliver real, measurable value in improving safety or efficiency on a mine site?
I'm
Yeah,
happy
I'll
to share
probably
one
start.
first. Okay, go
You
ahead,
want me to
Sunil.
start? All right. Yeah, I can give an
I'm
example.
very passionate about this, so yeah, but you can go first.
All right. I
Yeah.
think for me, when we talk about real value and implementation of AI, remember we still need to still be getting back to the topic here, it's pit to pod. Now, when we come to the pit itself, I think one of the key things that I've seen that has delivered real value is the collision detection on the autonomous trucks. That has reduced the number of incidents. You see, anything that is not linked to a key performance indicator might not be done. So the key in terms of implementation or seeing the real value is link it to a key performance indicator, because mining, we are busy. So if I'm not being measured on this thing, I'll probably not give it much attention. So what gets measured, a wise person once said, what gets measured gets done. Now, in terms of the collision detection on the autonomous trucks, now we've got massive trucks across Australia and also South America that are being run remotely. 1,500 kilometers, away in a control room. The collision detection, foreign objects, a truck will stop. A truck versus a light vehicle, it will stop because it's able to sense. But all that sensing and stopping is being engineered by AI algorithms in the background on all the dashboards. And I've got a practical example where I was a senior mining engineer leading the implementation of 32 trucks that were retrofitted. And one of the testings that we put blocks on the haul road to see if the truck will actually stop, and it does stop. When we talk about mine of the future, Rio Tinto started this thing in 2008, mine of the future, and we're still going. And we've seen other sites, other mining companies have picked up on that, and they've all gone autonomous haulage. It's because of the safety that is delivering and the operational efficiency, and that is key. But what is driving that in the background is AI, and it's very important when we talk about the context and also people, like before Chris was saying before, in the African context or just in other companies as well, people always wait to see what other people will do, before they can actually adopt, Oh, so no, let's see if it will work, Don't wait, be in the forefront, because the message today is that AI or automation is not going away. And I just read in one of the tabloids, I think McKinsey and company, they were indicating that companies are spending now for this year alone, in terms of AI projects, $2.1 billion. That's massive, and it will only increase. So we need to get on the bandwagon, and actually there are tangible, real results. Thank you.
Thank
This
you,
is
Sumili.
very
Definitely,
interesting.
there's a lot of opportunity. Chris, over to you.
Yes, this is a very interesting topic, Maumo. And from my experience, when I think about one very interesting practical use case, it's around, one of the top 5 costs of any mining operation, regardless of size, is maintenance. That it's one of the top 5 costs of a mining operation. And in there, and I'm going to sound a bit technical in terms of describing this use case, so bear with me. It's something I'm very passionate about when I think about mining. But in there lies predictive maintenance. And Sumili will agree with me on when I say that, because you need to be producing when you're supposed to be producing. Actually, I heard this line from him one of these days, that because you need to be producing when you're supposed to be producing, you do need to minimize downtime, and so you can achieve that shift from reactive to proactive maintenance through AI, IoT, and machine learning. So for example, using IoT sensors, you can capture vibration and temperature data of a mobile plant or a fixed plant. And I've done this before, so speaking from experience, and building machine learning models that predict equipment failure with a very good lead time, maybe weeks in terms of lead time. And you can imagine how much weeks can save you, because the goal is to transition from unplanned downtime to planned downtime, so that you can plan for supply chain, to order the equipment that will need to be replaced, and you can take the equipment out of production gracefully and be able to repair it without impacting production. So that is really key from that angle. And now with the AI we know today, the opportunity is now even way better, where you can apply generative AI to the predicted results to interpret and communicate the actions that the team should take in order to avoid equipment failure. That gives you a lot of information, a lot of clarity, and helps build the trust in the engineers that are building that out. So if I could deep dive into that particular implementation, the way to think about it is, what do these vibration sensors, what could they enable? Vibration sensors especially. Imagine putting a vibration sensor on a mobile plant, say a big truck, you put the sensor there. The vibration data itself gives you the opportunity to get a lot of benefits. Think of it from, with vibration data on a mobile plant, you can detect operator behavior. That would also require maybe retraining and improve safety. From the same sensor, you can also help reduce equipment misuse. So just by that alone, you've kind of identified the operator that needs retraining, and then you end up improving safety just by that action, and also reducing equipment misuse. And then from that same particular sensor implementation through IoT, you get to detect where the roads require maintenance. And what does that give you when you've actually detected where the roads require maintenance? You obviously deploy the maintenance team to go and fix the roads. And by doing that, guess what? You're extending tire life of the equipment. The tire lifespan is improved. And just by doing that as well, the tear and wear of the equipment, guess what happens? It improves as well. So you see how powerful, just from IoT sensors, piped through IoT, Wi-Fi, or whatever that is. And these sensors can even work offline in harsh connectivity environments, and then sync back into your server environment, and the machine learning models run after the fact. Just from that, you can imagine the benefit. There's a safety benefit, there's a training opportunity, there's equipment lifespan opportunity, there's tire, there's less downtime. What you get in the end is an equipment operating for longer and producing when it's supposed to be producing. I think this is really key if you're going to transition from unplanned downtime into planned downtime. So this is one practical use case I feel is a low-hanging fruit for a lot of organizations, because they already capture the data. The data that Sumili was talking about, the telemetry data, it's already captured, but it's underutilized.
I think, Chris, I like the way you're talking with passion on that, because if machines are not available, I think there are mining engineers on the forum tonight, then also other people that work in the mining industry, I think they would agree that when I was discussing with Chris early this week, and I was talking about we need to produce when we're supposed to be producing. You see, production is not a linear equation that when you miss production today, you'll be able to catch it up the following day. You can do that, but that will require availability more than plan. It will require, do you have extra areas where you can mine to speed it up? Now, when Chris talks about just the sensors themselves, what we've seen around the businesses is that sometimes a piece of equipment will come into the workshop. This equipment is supposed to be down for 168 hours. At the time that the equipment should be returning back, by the way, we can't bring the equipment back because when we're doing a walk around, we found that there are extra boom cracks, so it will be out for another extra 2 days. But if we use predictive maintenance, all those things will be able to be encapsulated. So by the time the equipment is coming for maintenance, you already know what you'll be working on. So I think there's real value in that. And it's not something that will happen. No, it's something that is already happening on some mine sites and with some other players in the business. So there are several examples that we can mention, even just autonomous water cut. The first autonomous water cut without a human being in there, is using AI machine learning. And that was first deployed in 2022, where the water cut is driving, due to change of conditions, there's dust, the sprinklers turn on. How did it know all that? So that's through AI machine learning, and it's changing the landscape. So there are so many practical use examples that we can give, and it's just amazing to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Samili and Chris. Thank you so much for that. And I can see you're both very passionate about this, and we could probably go on and on and on with all these technologies, right? I think one thing that really has stood out for me, and it's something that also also something that was said as well, again, in the last webinar. So again, proof that we're not just talking about anything, right? We're making sense here in these discussions is something that Chris mentioned, and you gave so many use cases of value chain when you're talking about the vibration sensor. And one thing that was mentioned in the last webinar was, about entrepreneurs or startups coming up with solutions to problems that don't just solve one problem in the mining, value chain, but address several problems across the value chain. And that makes it more valuable for an organization, and increases the chances of them even listening to you and wanting to adopt your solutions. So for me, that vibration sensor, the IoT sensors was really something that really stood out. The entrepreneurs and the developing solutions for the mining sector here are really listening to that, right? Look for, provide solutions to problems that solve problems across, the value chain, not just one problem, but look for something that actually solves several problems. So I will go to our next question. I'm also mindful of time. I do want to leave maybe about 15 minutes for the audience to also ask you some questions. So my next question here would be, so a number of the audience members are founders, so some that are listening here on the Zoom platform, some on YouTube, on Facebook. So this is a question to both of you. When a startup is pitching their new AI or data or IoT or tech solution to you, what makes you actually listen from a strategic level? And also, what makes you trust that their technology would work on your site?
Yeah, that's another interesting question. I think when we talk about pitching and people trying to get into the ears of the decision makers, because remember, you need to get into the ears of the decision makers. Not everyone is a decision maker, but I think for me, one of the things that actually stand out is a credible business case, that actually explains the NPV or the return on investment. Because remember that every dollar that we spend in mining, it goes to the cost, and it has to be tangible. It has to be something that we can value, something that can be measured. So in terms of those business cases that might go through, I think focus more on having a credible business case that actually shows what you are actually trying to resolve, and is it really an issue? How else can it be done? And most of the people that are trying to get into the business, I think a piece of advice for me is that reach out to people that are in the industry, because sometimes you find that all these people they're tech gurus. They know this thing works. It works on the laptop. It works on the computer. You can run scenarios. It works, but is it actually practical? Like, that's why I'm so excited that today we're discussing, because Chris is a data IT person. He has always been. Me, I'm a mining person. Now we've got an IT person and a mining person combined. That's strategic, So we need to be able to involve people that actually understand the practical side. We have people that have done machine learning, they've got degrees, they've got all these certificates, coupled with people that have done mining engineering. Work together to understand the practicality, because if it's not practical, then you're probably need to do some more, to make it work. And for me, that's key. Something. Then also, what is the support? Are you just going to bring something to me and disappear? So when I talk about a credible business case and the solution, it should detail how you're going to support me. After I've embedded the process, how am I going to be supported? Or how can my team members be trained to be self-sufficient? One of the things that I've seen that work well is good support after you've delivered a solution. That is amazing. I know of a software company that over Christmas, this guy, he's the director, he's on holiday, he's in Bali, just chilling. Because mining is 24/7. We're not chilling. So people that are on holiday, enjoy, but the mine has to keep going. So we need support. So if you're going to offer a solution, when you're on leave people that can also help the users on site. It doesn't matter what time of the year it is. That support goes a long way. Thank you.
Good point, Sumili.
Yes.
Yeah. And I've had the opportunity of sitting on both sides of the table, thankfully, as a consultant pitching to mining houses, as well as a customer buying from consultants that are pitching to me. So I've been privileged to see both sides of the story, and the use of the wrong words and the use of the right words. But what has really stood out for me is sitting on the customers, as a customer buying from people pitching to me. What has really stood out for me is how intimate they are with the problem that they're pitching to solve. And my colleagues who would also be customers listening in on the pitch would ask questions like, so which other mining site is this solution deployed at? That's one of the most common questions mining companies will always ask, because of the things I mentioned earlier around mining is risk averse. They don't want to be the first to trial stuff that is high risk unless there's a guarantee of a contained environment. But that's tough for entrepreneurs. We're talking about people that are probably developing this for the first time. It's never been deployed anywhere before. So then now the question becomes, what experiments as an entrepreneur have you actually run in a simulated environment, to show that it can solve the problem, you know. That aside, but then the other parties what effort have you also put in to understand the mining environment? Have you even visited the mine site before? Have you tried to, because like Sumili said at first, the mindset is different between somebody on site and somebody off site. Very different mindset. So it really matters. So you can see that none of these questions are about the tech. It's about how intimate is this person to the problem. It's about how familiar are they with our with the mining environment, working conditions, and can they be trusted to provide the support, like the support that Sumili was talking about, when a mining operation has to run 24/7. Those are really key. So characteristics, it's the character of the team that is bringing the solution. And this is where now you find that establishing the right networks and the right connections for the entrepreneur, talking to the right people, talking to the decision makers, like the ones that Sumili had talked about, becomes key, so that you break the trust barrier first, and then you show the problem can be solved, and then only talk about the tech at the end. Probably the end user won't even care that you're using IoT or using AI. They just want to solve the problem. Make it easier for them to do production.
All right. Thank you so much, Christopher and Sumili. I think very, very good insights. Again, just to quickly recap, in case some people on the call did not hear some of these things. So get to the ears of the decision makers. A credible business case explains the return on investment that was mentioned by Sumili. And it's very important that people that are very knowledgeable in technology pair with people that are knowledgeable with what happens in actual mining conditions, right? So that they ensure that their solutions are practical. Another important thing is, what support are you providing to the mines, to your customers after deploying your solution? How intimate are you with the problem that you're pitching to solve? How familiar are you with mining working environments? And then finally, the character of the team bringing in the solution. I think that's very key. We do get a lot of entrepreneurs pitching. They mention their team. This person is going to be doing this. This person is going to be doing that. This person is the business development, the CEO, the whatnot, but never really mentioning, what makes you the best person to be solving this problem. And I think that is very, very key. So thank you so much for these insights. I will ask my last question, and then we will open it up for questions from the audience. And I think the audience is very attentive because we haven't yet received any questions yet. But audience, please, I think now you can relax a little. We've almost reached the end. Please post your questions in the chat. Post your questions on Facebook, on YouTube, and Mariah will help us get them on here so that we can ask our panelists before they leave. But just before I move on, my last question here is, looking 5 to 10 years ahead, what is the one technology example, full autonomy, predictive AI, digital twins? So what is the one technology that you believe will truly transform mining operations in Africa? And I know we've been talking a lot about, it seems that we've been talking a lot about, these big mining operations, but I know there's also some entrepreneurs as well trying to solve problems for smaller mines, right? So I think also here in Africa, even here in Zambia, really trying to get, to the small scale miners, the artisanal miners. So it would be really great for you to also maybe just touch a bit on that so that we don't leave those guys behind. So I'll repeat my question. Looking forward 5 to 10 years from now, what is one technology you believe will truly transform mining operations in Africa? And I think Christopher will start with you, and then we'll end with you, Sumili.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Mamo. So I think for me, looking 5 to 10 years ahead, the mining environment will not change much in terms of operations, but and their goals of today might still remain the same as 5 to 10 years time. Mining is a long-term game. It's a long-term strategy. So their goals today might remain the goals in 10 years time. It's about, for example, for a copper mine or a gold mine, it's about increasing recoveries. How can you maximize recoveries, but without sacrificing throughput? Because it's not possible to recover, for example, in a gold mine or a copper mine, it's not possible to recover 100% of the gold or copper. That is why you end up with some of it going to the tailings dam, and then when new tech emerges, it's reprocessed. And so thinking about that, that how do you maximize recoveries without sacrificing throughput, and doing it so in a very efficient manner will be really key. The tech that improves recovery will be very easy to sell, and improving recovery, obviously, in a safe manner. So I think we've talked about the telemetry data that is already collected, and recoveries calculated in a processing plant. The processing plants already come with systems like historian systems, whether it's Pi or Honeywell. You mentioned it. There are various types of systems that are plugged into the processing plant. They already capture a lot of that data that can be used to calculate recoveries. They already calculate the recovery. An increase by 1% in recovery is a lot of millions of US dollars. So if you can imagine it from that angle, that most operations, say a gold mining company would be very comfortable recovering only 89 to 92% of mining throughput. They would be very happy with that. But if you give them, and these mining companies will invest the hundreds of millions of dollars just to increase recovery by 2, 3, 4%. So I think the tech that reduces the capital expenditure on improving recoveries at a lower cost, but improves the recovery so high that it does not sacrifice throughput, is the tech that's going to be scooped very quickly by any mining company. And I think the entrepreneurs need to prioritize that, because that is a bottleneck that will still stay true in the next 5 to 10 years.
All right, thank you so much, Christopher. Sumili?
Amazing. Yeah, thanks, Maomo. I think, thank you, Chris. For me, I wanted to talk about two things, but I want to touch on what Chris actually mentioned, because in the Ernst & Young, they did produce the top 10 risks and opportunities for mining and metals for 2025. And in the top 10, one of the risks that was mentioned there is depletion of resources. So we are seeing across the world where resources are depleting, and we haven't really invested much in exploration over the last few years. So that will mean that we need to have the ability to recover more from the material that we have. And previously, there's some material that did not meet grade, maybe 5, 10 years ago, that with new technology, you can still bring in that material and recover. There's an example with BHP Escondida mine in Chile. They've employed AI to increase their recovery of grade material. So this is actually happening, and that should be the focus as well. The other part that I wanted to talk about, for most of the companies that are already on the journey, I think it will be more of digital twins and predictive AI. With digital twins, it's a replica of the operation that you are running, but you are doing it risk averse. it's able to show you the optimization of the fleet or anything that you're doing and the desired outcome in real time. That once you put those controls and decisions in place, you are going to get the outcome that you've already seen in the digital twin. And that to me is powerful. And in the next 5 to 10 years, people that can focus on that will see real-time decisions that are being made quickly to optimize operations. Remember, it's about the safety, the efficiency, and the productivity. So if we can get these, then that would be amazing. Then for those that are just starting out, or there are small operations in Africa, don't wait. Start from where you are. This can be a staged approach, but the value long-term is enormous. So they need to start from where they are. And the other thing is that they need to be able to engage the OEMs. Let the small mining companies engage the original equipment manufacturers. Those working hand in hand with them, they are able to provide solutions, and together they'll join the bandwagon and they'll be humming. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Christopher and Sumili. And there you have it, entrepreneurs. I hope you were listening and you've taken notes on those so that you can be ahead of the curve. So we do have 2 questions so far. So I think we'll start with those. So our first question here is from Mulenga Hamuyube. And we kind of did answer this question, I think, in our conversation, but I think, yeah, maybe it's worth also repeating because it really is a big challenge that entrepreneurs have. So how do you approach a mining firm to do research and work with personnel to co-develop solutions to problems faced in the industry? And then he says, he or she says, approaching large firms can be daunting.
Yes, it can be daunting, but it's you have to step out of your comfort zone. And the mining organizations have corporate social responsibility programs, and majority of them would actually be interested to support researchers that are coming from learning institutions, if that's where the person who's asking is coming from. I recall when I was at Lumwana Mining Company, where we brought in a student that was studying at ZCAS and wanted to do their research on their final year project. And they came over, and at the time, obviously, Lumwana was under construction. I would actually refer myself and Sumili to be the Lumwana Mafia, the team that transitioned the operation from construction into production. And during that time, it was strict. You wouldn't enter site. There were no, if you weren't an employee, you weren't allowed to come to Lumwana. You had to apply, but it was still possible.
We used to sleep in tents.
Yes, we used to sleep in tents. What an experience! But yes, so we did bring in students who were doing their final year projects to do their research. And that was very helpful for them. When they went back to uni to present, their lecturers couldn't even believe them that they had actually visited site until they showed pictures. So it is actually possible to talk to mining companies, depending on where you're coming from, as long as you can motivate for it that, hey, this is a research program, these are the results that I'll get out of it, and this is probably how it adds value to the mining organization. Maybe it's a branding thing that they can also ride on as well. Yeah. So it's what's in it for them. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think to add on that, definitely it can be daunting, but the other thing that you need to know is that what's the worst thing that can happen to you? You go knocking or sending an email, what's the worst thing that can happen? Sometimes we're too scared to voice out things or to talk. It's more the value that you're going to present. So it's very important, and just to reaching out, and you'll be surprised. There are more people that are willing to respond to you than people that are willing to refuse. It's very important. And like what Chris mentioned as well, The other avenue is going through the universities. Those partnerships that mining companies have with universities have resulted in some serious solutions, that have changed things and how things are done in the operation. So I think you need to start by stepping out and reaching out.
All right, thank you. So we have another question here. I don't personally understand it clearly, so we might have to ask Philemon to maybe resend, but just in case you do, Chris, because I think it is directed at you. And it says, the speaker talked about using machine learning to predict failure using vibration and temperature. Are there real world examples of cases where models are produced that value? So I don't know if this is clear. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Right.
the short answer is yes. And what I was describing is from real experiences. It's not theoretical. And some of it is in the public domain. It's also in the annual statements. And when companies release this information in annual reports, it means it's also been audited. It's been confirmed. One of the organizations that I once worked for actually put out the figures that in 1 year, they delivered over $40 million out of these initiatives, tangible money in the bank value out of these initiatives. So these are real use cases with a dollar figure attached to show the value, and that value was both in revenue generation as well as cost savings. And cost avoidance is a difference between cost savings and cost avoidance in terms of how we approach it. Yes, so Philemon, that's actually true. The short answer is yes.
I think the things that we've spoken about today, these are real life situations, and everything, is either through experience or what is in the public domain. It's very important that we talk about things that have been experienced and things that are in the public domain. It's very important that everything has been audited. And one of the other things that I would encourage everyone to take interest in is when firms like Ernst & Young, KPMG produce their reports on metals and mining. There's so much information there. There's so much detail there. And companies' annual reports, that's what has been verified, is out there. And we learn a lot through reading those and actually understanding what is actually happening. Yesterday, I was fortunate to attend a technology forum here in Perth organized by OZIM. And that was the language throughout. AI is not going anywhere, but those are all verified reports. So it's interesting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the next question by Chikondi Banda. And it says, for data scientists or researchers looking to transition into mining tech, what technical skills or domain knowledge would you prioritize learning? And where do you see the biggest gaps between academic training and what's actually needed on site? So this is whoever wants to give it a go.
I can give it a go. So the beauty here, Chikondi, is that as a data scientist, you don't need to transition into mining to actually deliver mining tech. And the technical skills is something that you already possess. Because if you think about data science, it's an intersection between, statistics, mathematics, computer science, and domain knowledge. So maybe what you need to check is how much domain knowledge do you possess about mining, because you already have the statistics and mathematics and the computer science, which brings you the Python programming skills and all that stuff that you probably already possess. But do you have the domain knowledge? And the domain knowledge is what will help you interpret the results that you build out of the models to communicate the value to the customer that you're trying to communicate to. So I think that is how I would look at it. It's the domain knowledge of mining, and mining obviously is huge. You can't, even Sumili, the mining engineer here, will agree with me that, there are multiple careers within mining, so you don't need to be an expert at everything from a domain knowledge perspective, but maybe focus on the easiest domain, that is the easiest to understand from your perspective, or the one that you're most interested in. But don't get too carried away with the one that you become too passionate about, because maybe there's no problem to fix in that domain. Go into a domain in mining that has got a problem to fix. So always remind yourself back to that as your fundamental.
Yeah, I think as
There's a second part of the question.
Okay.
Maybe before you go, there's also a second part of the question, which is, where do you see the biggest gaps between academic training and what's actually needed on site, if any? Yeah. So
Okay.
while you're
Yeah.
answering, you can touch on that.
Yeah, I think I can. I think the gap there, Chris, you would see that academic training and actual experience. You see, the disconnect there is sometimes we've got lecturers that have been out of the mining industry. They don't go to site, they don't associate, they don't go to forums. They're just teaching things that are there that are theory. To me, that's a gap. What we need to do is an integration between operations and the academia, working at things. There's someone that used to say that all these things that you are learning here on site, we don't do that. How are we exposing the current students to the software that is being used on site? I remember when I went to Rumwana, the first thing that we did, and we helped the University of Zambia do, is that we got some computers for the mining engineering computer lab. And we got software that was being used on site to be used by the engineers while they're still at university. That's how you can bridge the gap. But if you're just going to have theory, then there might be a disconnect. Then also looking for opportunities where you actually go for industrial attachment as an intern. That will help. And the universities should push for that. And some of us that have gone through university, and now we are managers, we are superintendents. We are the people who should be helping out universities to bridge that gap. So don't just get employed, you are a manager, you're a superintendent, you are happy, you forget about the young generation. No, we also play a part in helping bridge that. So we need to work together to ensure that we are getting graduates that are ready to work. Thank you.
I'm also gonna double down on what Sumili has said, and I'll probably suggest something very, very simple here. Academia has got an alumni network. I think they do not tap into that enough. So the managers that Sumili has talked about, say for example, I was at CBU, Sumili was at UNZA. If UNZA was to reach out to Sumili and invite him as part of the alumni network to go and be a guest lecturer, it doesn't have to be for the entire curriculum. It just has to be maybe for a single course. I don't think Sumili would refuse. He would want to give back. He would want to give back. So I think that's a very simple thing to do. The alumni will even do it for free. Sumili, I don't think will want to be paid to go and lecture, to go and give back to his uni. The same applies to me,
Yes.
And I know friends as well that I was with at CBU that would be more than willing to do this. So the universities, I think if they reached out, they do. I don't know if they maintain a database of the alumni, but if they were to maintain a database and the contacts of the alumni and reach out to them and come back as guest lecturers, just for one topic, that would go a long way in closing the gap. I think that's one that comes off the top of my head very quickly, and I think is a low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, I think that's key. I'll give an example. You see, when I was doing my my MBA at Kettering University, we had a guest lecturer who used to be the premier for Western Australia. He came to teach us about leadership. He's a politician, but he came to teach us about leadership, practical skills. So to me, I think that's like what Chris was saying. That's adds so much value to what is actually on the ground and what is theory. So I think we should tap into that.
All right, thank you so much. So I have three questions here. I'll focus on the one that's more directly mining related, then I may go to the others, but I can already see that we're already 1 minute over time. So I do want to ask the panelists and also the audience, if you're okay, we can stretch it maybe till 1:35, just to make sure that we're done with the questions. So I'll go ahead with the question here, and then you'll let me know as well. So here, this question is from Donald Mazole. And he asks, my question goes to both speakers. How can mining companies collaborate with startups and tech companies to drive innovation and accelerate the adoption of AI technologies? So I can repeat that again. How can mining companies collaborate with startups and tech companies to drive innovation and accelerate adoption of AI technologies?
Okay, I think that's a good question. How can they collaborate? I think what we need to know here is that mining companies, they are in business. So the ones that have to reach out are the people that are trying to bring that solution. And one of the key ways of doing that is attending conferences where you present your case. Because when we have like here every year in Australia, in Perth, is what we call Africa Down Under. You know, Africa Down Under is a mining conference that happens every year in September, where businesses that are based in Australia and have got interest in Africa, and African startups that want investment from Australia or any other countries come together. So what is key there is that when you want to provide a solution, join those conferences as a participant in terms of presenting. I've seen many things come out of there, because when you are the one reaching out, you know, those are the platforms where you're going to have all the different mining companies in one room, and it is your time to shine. So in terms of collaboration, I would encourage people to look out for those opportunities to present. And there are so many mining conferences that happen around the world. So there's even a mining endeavor in Johannesburg or Cape Town every year. So look for those opportunities. Thank you.
Thanks, Sumidi. And the other opportunities to consider as well, like we on this webinar today, arranged by Bongo Hive, and you know, these are hubs that can host hackathons to solve problems for a mining company off-site. It's really key to participate in such programs like a hackathon, for example, and showcase your skills. But when you do that, this is the thing about these hackathons, is that when you do that, you've got the mining company's full attention during the period of the hackathon, where you can consult them and understand the problem and solve it for them within a very short time frame. And if it's something that shows promise or potential, the mining site now will invite you over to site to go and pilot it or trial it. So hackathons are a gateway as well for mining companies to collaborate with entrepreneurs and the like. And some mining companies don't have the luxury to hold these activities on site. They are very busy. They don't want to distract production. They would rather host them off-site in an environment that is that they sponsor, but then they'll send over their people maybe for a day or two to come and interact with the entrepreneurs that are there. So the entrepreneurs shouldn't miss out on being or participating in these open forum hackathons, submitting their ideas and showcasing their skill sets and how they can solve their problems. I think that's a collaboration platform that can be easily set up, and normally these collaboration platforms are also free to join or to attend. These are physical. There are also virtual ones online as well, where you can find hackathons on cargo.com, for example, where you can participate and submit your solutions. Yeah.
All right. Thank
I
you
think
so much. Oh,
just
yeah.
one more thing, Maumo.
Please go
You
ahead.
see,
Yeah.
add value to yourself and be visible. That's it. You need to be visible, but start by adding value to yourself and be visible.
All right. Thank you, Sumili, and thank you, Christopher. So actually, the two questions we have in the chat have already been answered during the course of the discussion. So we will not take them. We'll encourage you to go back, listen to the conversation in its entirety, and you'll get your answers. So thank you so much to both panelists, to both speakers. Thank you so much for giving of your time, your insights, and also for sharing how excited you are to continue to do this as well, because it's really important. This is what helps us grow the ecosystem. This is what helps us grow startups. When people like you come back and give of themselves without necessarily requiring anything as well, just for the need and the pleasure to want to also still grow the ecosystem. So thank you so much. It is the first time that we are working like this in the mining sector, in the MineTech sector. So for us, even along with UNDP and Nisir, it's been an incredible learning, journey and experience. And we're hoping to continue to do this and still have you on board with us again. So thank you so much. If you have any last words, please feel free to share. And for our audience and for yourselves as well, we will have this recording available on YouTube and also as a download if you would like to still refer to it, share it in your networks and the likes. So thank you so much again, once again. And yeah, if you have any last words, please feel free. Otherwise, we can bring the webinar to a close.
Yeah, I think my last words, Maumo, is that when we talk about pit to port and we're introducing AI and digital technologies, one thing that we need also to guard against is cyber attacks. Cyber security is key because KPMG released their 2025 risk, and on number 4 was cybersecurity. So as we introduce this, we also need to be mindful of putting controls in place, because if there are hackers out there and they hack the system and there are 50 trucks autonomous running amok, that would be catastrophic. So, let's safeguard that as well. And thank you for the opportunity to participate. And thank you to all the listeners and the viewers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumili, and thank you, Maumo. And I agree with what Sumili has shared. For me, and maybe for everyone who's watching and listening, some of the key takeaways, mining companies, capture a lot of data, which is untapped telemetry data, and the technology gap is not the problem. We've talked about change management and building trust. That's where it all starts. It's the people, and proving value in a contained environment, I think, is another key takeaway. Before you scale and put in too much investment. But we've talked about people or entrepreneurs solving a problem. We didn't dive too much into how they can find those problems. So a tip of how to discover these problems when you don't work in mining that I would leave everyone with is go and read mining companies' annual statements, annual reports. They will mention their big projects there. Where they are putting their money, chances are that's where the problem is. That's what they want to fix. So it helps you filter where the biggest pain points are. And that's free information you can find on any listed mining company. So that's how you can go for problem hunting, if you want to call it that way. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So we do have a last question here, which is there going to be another webinar like this one from Donald Mazole? So yes, there will be. Our last webinar in this 3-part series will take place on December 4th. But we do encourage you to just keep an eye on all Bongo Hive social media platforms, UNDP social media platforms. We will make the announcement, but the next webinar is in December, first week of December 4th. and we'll be sharing the topic and the speakers as soon as probably next week. So thank you so much for everybody's time and for joining us. This was a very fruitful discussion. And I'd like to wish you for those of you in Australia, I do believe this is morning or afternoon. So please enjoy the rest of your day or your evening. And for those on this side of the equator, please enjoy the rest of your day as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.